As I said in my first video, I'll continue talking about the paperwork, and this episode is about planning permission. You don't need an architect to submit planning permission to the council because council is really interested in how your project fits in the neighborhood. If you build a huge house, your neighbors might lose some privacy and some light, and therefore councils have rules to make sure that it doesn't happen. If your extension is small, you may not need planning permission. Check permitted development rules. My project was bigger and I submitted council application for planning permission. We download free software, SketchUp, and we did it ourselves and submitted to the council. So a few main points to remember what to include. You need to include the house the way it looks now, externally, front and back elevation on both sides, with measurements, then internal layout with measurements as well. Then you need to include your proposed development, external with measurements, and internal with how many bedrooms and bathrooms in your future home. Then you need to include a drawing from land registry where your house sits, with trees, big trees, because some trees might be protected and council might want to make sure these trees stay, and also you need to make sure that you have enough parking spaces. In my case, I'm going to have a 4-bedroom house. Therefore, I needed 3 off-road parking spaces. If you have a garage and it's a tiny old-fashioned garage that doesn't fit your car, really doesn't normally fit in it, it's not counted as a parking space. In your application, include a lot of details so the planning officers understand what your development is. Also, if you build on the boundary or you live in terraced or semi-detached house, make sure you do the party wall agreement. I didn't have to do it. I have no experience about it, but I know it exists. So make sure you do that. Also, if your neighbors object, they will object on the portal and you will be able to see it's all open. Everybody can view your planning application and all the objections you have. Your neighbors can only object, well, they can object regardless, but if they object and there's no grounds to the objection, council unfortunately will ignore. But it's kind of fair enough if your neighbors don't like changes or building noise and disruption, because there is disruption, I'm afraid, and they might just object for the sake of it, but council will ignore it unless there are some grounds to it. And if you decide to put a window on the side elevation on the first floor, and your council officer, for example, hasn't noticed, so your neighbors might bring that to their attention, because you're not allowed to have windows on the side elevation on the first floor unless it's a bathroom window with obscured glass and not opening, so you can't spy on your neighbors. I was very transparent with my council. It went all okay. Unfortunately, it overran from the deadline was 8 weeks, but I had it 10 weeks, and we submitted pre-planning application, which was really unnecessary, but because we learn as we go along. We thought that would speed up potentially a process, and we learn from the pre-planning application what we've done wrong. So we submitted pre-planning application in January and we had it approved. Planning officer even came out to have a look and he was happy with the development. He was happy that the house will fit in the neighborhood nicely and the extension will not block any light to the neighbors. So we had the pre-planning application approved. And then when we submitted the planning application, I was hoping 2 weeks, because the officer only needed to write a report. The information was all there and it was approved anyway, but it took 10 weeks, unfortunately. So I submitted my pre-planning application in January and I had my planning permission in May or June, I can't remember. Yes, roughly 6 months the process. So if you want to start your building in the summer, you need to submit your planning application roughly in September. In my next video, I will explain the next step. When you get your planning application approved, next step is to get a structural engineer. A structural engineer will calculate the thickness and strength of steel beams if you need some open spaces, will specify the depth and the thickness of foundations and all the other structural elements that to make sure the house stays and doesn't fall apart.